But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
Welcome back, welcome back. My name is Uncle James. I am your wandering agnostic teacher / messenger. And once again, welcome to the Church of the Agnostic. Now, we are in the third part of our Meaning of Life series. Before we had, if you haven't seen the other videos, you should go back and take a look at them. The first part discusses who God and what God is, and who we are and what we are as beings and a creation of God. The second part then delves a little bit deeper into who we are and what we're here for, why we're here. And now we're in the third part and final part of the Meaning of Life series today, where we're discussing, now that we're here, and we know that we're here to heal and overcome our issues that our life is supposed to overcome. Now, how do we live? As an agnostic, that's not particularly an easy question, because there are many voices in this world, many religions, all vying for your attention, all thinking they're, vying for souls, as it were. And one thing to understand is that, no one can lose their soul. There's no devil that can steal your soul. You are an infinite, eternal being living a temporary human existence. No one can take away who you are. You just exist as God, as one and equal with God. Now, as I stated before, that doesn't mean, oh, I am God and I can be worshipped and I have to be worshipped all the time. No, that's not God. That's ego. So the question is then, how do we live as an agnostic? You can choose whatever you want. The question is, how do you want to live? I would say there are some precepts that you should live by, namely by service to self, living in love and light, of course. But should you choose to want to go to a religion, then there's no wrong answer to that. And we are here to help you think of the Church of Agnostic as, for some, as a springboard to launch to another place. You just need a place to sit and lay low until you figure this thing out, life, and what you want to do. For others of you, this may be your new home. And welcome to all of you to the Church of Agnostic. I say that literally as a place you're here on social media and you're here in this community, namely myself and the people that live with me and the people that know me, but also the rest of the social media community here who consider themselves agnostic, and everybody else out there that considers themselves agnostic. Agnostic is a big word, and it means a lot of things. And in particular, you have two major categories that you can try to sum up an agnostic, and one category is an agnostic who they don't necessarily believe in God, so they're kind of leaning on the no category on that, but they're not going to go as far as to say that they're atheists, right? Then you have the agnostic that leans towards they believe in a God. They don't necessarily ascribe to any one religion. So the question is, as in this video, is how do we live as an agnostic if you choose to live in that neutral category? Well, first understand that neutral doesn't necessarily mean non-committal, right? Being agnostic does not mean that you do not have a set of morals, and I will guarantee you right now, after you're done with this video, everybody has a moral compass, and we will bring that out here in a minute. But there's literally no wrong answer to this question. So you may choose whatever. Atheism, you can choose it. Eastern religions, Abrahamic religions, pick one. Tribal religions. I know there's all kinds of stuff out there to believe in. And all of them, each of them, no more important than the other. Each have their own set of lessons and set of challenges to overcome and live. Atheists may agree with agnostics and say that religions and their sacred books, such as the Quran and the Bible and so forth, are written by men with all of their distortions, I will say, misspellings, misinterpretations, misunderstandings, cultural biases, idiosyncrasies, and their cultural centric paradigms of the time. So, for example, you may find this interesting. The first commandment in the Bible of the 10 Commandments says, I am the Lord your God, and you shall not have any false gods before me. Could have perhaps been misinterpreted from actually saying, actually, I am all that is. Anything else imaginable is still I am, and nothing else outside of me exists. Therefore, there can be no false gods that exist outside of me, in other words. Can I prove that? No, I can't. But let's just say, for instance, if it was a mistranslation or a misinterpretation. It is undeniable that knowledge, the written word, gets lost in translation over time. This happens all the time. It's still happening, and it will continue to happen. Teachings that codify the original meanings of itself, you name it, whatever it is. You cannot tell me that these things do not get lost over time. For example, the great Library of Alexandria that burnt down that fateful day and was probably the hub of the greatest library of the greatest knowledge in the ancient world at that time, gone, up in smoke. And we can only imagine what things that they knew then have been lost that we will never know that we knew. So someone may ask, well, why would God allow such confusion? Then I would say you're probably asking the wrong question. The question you should be asking is, why wouldn't God allow such confusion? And to what I may answer is that, and of course, if I can't speak for God, I can't quote God, but I'm just a little old me. But if I were to quote God, I would say is to expand even greater possibilities of learning and reflecting of who I am and all that is. Meaning, God exists in everything. Nothing exists outside of God. Right? And all these things that happen here on earth is to learn lessons and to reflect to himself. So, know that there's something there. This whole confusion, I think about, let's say there was the whole Babylon experience, Tower of Babel, where all of the, supposedly, God struck it, and then that caused all of the languages to then come forth from there. I mean, imagine, that God didn't do that. Let's say God didn't do that just out of anger, but he did that through a purpose, There was all the possibilities now that we see today, that have come forth from that, having different languages and stuff like that. But anyways, I digress. So, a religious person, however, may agree with the agnostic that these religious sacred books that we're talking about, the Bible and so forth, are most certainly then inspired by God. And I would say that is entirely possible. You can have an inspired work of God, information that God has given to man. So, how do we judge all this? Where do we go from here? If there's, man is going to take what God has given and then it gets distorted and mistranslated, many times throughout time. What do we do then? How do we know? How do we trust the information that's out there? How do we trust these books that are, written by man, these sacred texts? If you're going to choose a religion and you're going to choose to go, you're probably just going to have to learn whatever it is that they got to tell you. If they say this is the way, the truth, and the light, well, then that, if you're going to be that, then that's what you're going to have to do. But if you're agnostic and you're here and you're listening to me, I would say, from my perspective, religions are the beginning of wisdom. Right? never an end to wisdom. So, contrary to what some of them texts say, some of them are like, we're the only one. Bible says, I'm the only one. Quran, we're the only one. Everybody has to have a claim on they're the only one. And I'm telling you, that's, from my perspective as an agnostic, that's not the case. They are beginnings of wisdom, and they teach us how to live and how to respect each other and conduct ourselves. But they're never the end of, be all, end of, because there's so much more outside of what that book or books have to cover, right? There's so much more. And namely, that's to say that God cannot be summed up in one or more books written here on earth, no matter how voluminous they are, and how thickly coded that people may think that there are, and how much weird codings that they can get from sacred codes that that the Bible, and there may be a lot of things out there that could do the same thing. They can get sacred codes and encryptions from all kinds of stuff. And we believe this, that God cannot be summed up in such books, because God is infinite, God is omnipotent, God is omnipresent. He can do anything he wants. He knows everything, he is everywhere, and he can do it all. He cannot be limited, but he can only expand to be so much more. And that is why we say you can start in religion, but don't stop there. Learn all that there is to learn, and keep learning. So, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas, it's those things are entirely about faith. Faith is belief in stuff that isn't validatable, if it's not verifiable. So choose a religion or not choosing. It's a matter of feeling, taste, passion, or purpose. It's now about your choice, right? It's now about what you choose as your preference. And I know a lot of you out there are like, oh, well, hey, you can't prove it, man. If you're a Christian and you think, oh, you can't prove it. If you're a Muslim and you're upset at what I had to say, you can't prove Islam is the correct religion. A Jew cannot prove that Judaism is the correct religion. No more than a Buddhist or a Hindu can say that theirs is correct. So the question still stands then, how do we live? Right? Some believe that it takes many lifetimes to become enlightened. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't take many lifetimes to become enlightened. It only takes one lifetime to learn. Now, if you're listening to the video, that one purpose to life, to live, is to be service to others, as opposed to being service to self. You'll hear a lot on this channel. I always say, look to nature for answers. Look to nature as examples. Nature is God's creation, and therefore nature is a guide. Nature is a teacher, in other words. So here's a lesson for all us agnostics. Here's a kind of giving a sort of an analogy. Each of us are like plants that are planted in soil, and in order to survive, plants need soil, they need water, they need sunlight, and so forth to survive. But it's only with the fruit plants that show us what's kind of really going on in the human existence. A fruit plant can survive in harsh conditions, but they may not necessarily bear fruit. If you want a fruit-bearing tree to bear fruit, in order to do so, it needs an excess of resources to be able to do so. That means it needs more rich soil, more than enough to survive. It needs plenty of sunshine, and it needs plenty of water. to be able to bear forth fruit. So, service to others is like a sweet fruit that life has to offer. Get it? So we're bearing fruit. These are the sweet things in life that we are looking for, that honors God and that reflects God to himself. Our guides, those are they may be ones that have come before us. Could be family members, people that have passed away, people that are in your life to help you, are waiting for us to graduate this life, this thing we call life, 3D, and to bear the fruit of service to others. This is the signal that one is ready to ascend to a higher state of being in the 3D and into 4D. So it's the very signal of one that's ready to ascend. Only with ripened fruit, the spiritual ambrosia, then we can be harvested at that time. While we are already eternal beings and we don't need ascension, but we're living this life from one phase to another. We've lived from different phases of evolution, and we're here to expand into the next level of evolution, because creation doesn't stop here. God will continue to expand. So there's 3D life. There's going to be more to live, and we're here to do more. We're already launching into the stars and already, researching fantastic things, and we continue to evolve. So what's the next step? What's the next step? And the service to others is the fruit that signifies that we are ready to ascend to that next level of consciousness. Now, fruit can come into two very different things. There could be bad fruit, and there could be good fruit. There could be poisonous fruits, and then there could be, life-giving fruit. And depending on which one that you're bearing in a lifetime is going to signal where you're going to go, or where you're going to have to come back and fix. So, kind of take a step back, kind of reiterating the tree bearing fruit. Humans cannot just live to survive, right? So we're plants here on this earth, but we have different needs than a plant. And if you're constantly living in survival mode, you're not going to bear any fruit. All right? Look to nature. We're just like the plants and the animals. And it's until we can learn to live in equilibrium with the life that has to offer us, and until then we have to learn to live in equilibrium with life so that we can be abundant and be in goodness and learn to be service to others. First off, that you need to know is that the bad things that happen to us that sometimes cause us to live in survival mode for a long time, we should not deny those things. You cannot push away, you cannot separate those things away from us. So when bad things happen, embrace them and know that these are there for your greatest good, so that you can learn to overcome them. But living service to others is just half of one thing. The other half of that coin, let's say in another analogy to the service to other coin, is living service to self. You cannot have service to others without living service to self. And that seems counterintuitive to a lot of the new agey stuff that's come out today, and knowing what is service to others. You cannot separate. You have to live for yourself and make sure that you are taking care of yourself first, before you can even begin to decide to live service to others. So you start with self, and that's how you start. When you live in agnostic, you first focus in on yourself and decide, what do I need to make sure that I have, so that I have enough, more than enough, so that I can bear fruit, and that become service to others. Now, there are a few things that would constitute helping us to live service to self and service to others. And some of those things are going to be self-forgiveness is one, brutal self-honesty, right? When we're honest with ourselves, right, and we say that the bad thing, and I mentioned this in the previous video, that when bad things happen and somebody else does something to you and it causes you a whole lifetime of trauma, taking that and taking ownership of it so that you take their power away from them and it becomes yours. And when you take ownership of it, then you can then change it and flip it and turn it into something else that is now under your control and that will no longer affect you. Right? So the soil, we have to be planted in the soil of self-forgiveness. The light is brutal self-honesty. That's the light that is shined upon us. The water is knowledge that we get. We need water in order to be able to survive, and we need knowledge to be able to survive. Knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. If you want to be wise, if you want to have wisdom, you need knowledge. Knowledge and understanding. It means you have to listen. In other words. Well, there's another part to that, and that's what I had just mentioned about is living darkness and allowing the bad things that happen and letting them in. It's this darkness. It's like the weathering that happens to a tree. You can plant a tree and it can live and grow and be strong, but only the strongest ones are the ones that have endured the greatest threatening weather and the worst winds. They're tough, they're big, and they have big trunks and big branches and lots of leaves and stuff like that. And in order to be a big tree, in other words, to be the strongest emotionally and the strongest spiritually, is that you endure the darkness that is in your life. So how do you live as an agnostic? And again, the answers are, well, number one, you don't have to choose right now. It's not something that is, it's not like you have to fill out a form. God says you fill out the IRS form and you have to declare. That's not the case. You don't have to choose right now. There's no pressure. Consider agnosticism and therefore this channel to be but one place. Like I said, perhaps to call home, or simply just as a way station on to something else, onto a greater journey. Okay? While you're here, I would ask that you allow yourself to explore and to think. Allow your mind to open up to new horizons, and let that either reinforce your own faith or the faith of whatever religion you choose, or your resolve. We know, and I hope everyone understands, that God is love. God is all that exists. There is nothing else outside of God. We are one and equal as one with God. Okay? So this is the final part in the Meaning of Life series. Just kind of recap what is the meaning of life, going through those major things. The concept that we are eternal beings, one with God. God is an eternal being. He is all-knowing. He is present everywhere, exists everywhere, and he's all-powerful. So therefore, nothing exists outside of him. He is God. It is God. He is the source of all things. And you are a creation of God that is not necessarily less than God, but your purpose is separate, different from God. But you are one and equal with God. There's no difference between the two, between our higher selves and that of the greater source that is God. And we're here to live we're eternal beings living a temporary human experience, and that purpose of living this experience is to then overcome the hardships and the darkness that is this life. In order for us to overcome it, bear fruit of living service to others, thereby reflecting God to himself. so that God can see himself in you. And that is the purpose of these 3 videos here for the Meaning of Life series, is that we're here, we've made our choices, you've made all the choices you're ever going to make in your life, you're just now here on this earth to understand those choices. So we're here to overcome the darkness, but we're also here to live and understand all the good stuff, the joy, the happiness, right? All of the things that one enjoys in life. Did you know that if you want to have $1 million, you can have $1 million? There's more to it than that, because not everyone gets $1 million, and there's some lessons in that, and that's what I think what people need to, if they're going to get their $1 million, and they can have it. Trust me. Although I don't have $1 million right now, but I am proof, and I have proven to myself that the things that I can get, the things that I've manifested my partners in life. It works. And this has told me, and this has been my proof to me, that things that we want in life, we can have, and we can get them. There's things like a law of attraction and law of assumption and different things, and there's a path to it, and we will go into that in this channel. We will go through the ideas of law of attraction and things like that, and how we manifest the good things in life. So be on the lookout for those. We're going to have a new series. Be on the lookout for stuff like, love. I am going to do a series on love and what that all entails. There's some interesting things that you need to understand about love and how we love, and love involves sex, love involves sexuality. It's part of who we are. It's an integral part, and therefore we need to tackle it, and it's something that we need to go through when we're living service to others and we're learning about ourselves. So that's going to be an interesting series, and that'll be forthcoming here within the next coming days and weeks, so be on the lookout for that. I typically do you will have a weekly sermon that is released every Sunday, so to which we'll go over, I usually just go over whatever's on my heart for that week or whatever happened, and I'll give you a little story time, and we'll have a little tea time and just sit back and relax. So be on the lookout for those on Sunday, every Sunday on the dot. So all in all, you say, Uncle James, I don't believe in any of this. I mean, I really don't care, but I don't believe in any of this. And I would say that's okay. I cannot prove anything that I'm telling you. I can't. Nor can any Christian prove their faith, or any Muslim, or any Buddhist, or the Buddhists ain't trying to even prove anything. They just are doing whatever it is that they're doing. The Hindus can't prove anything, so it's a pickle, no doubt about it. I understand. So the challenge is what do we do then? What is the answer to this question then? And it's all going to be up to you in the end, whether you're going to accept what I have to say or not. I expect each and every one of you to make up your own damn minds.